Thanks for tuning in once again to more football talk, handicapping style on the Ourlads Football Network. Not only are we going to talk about the college football Saturday slate, but for the first time and from now on through the end of the NFL season, we're also going to talk NFL Sundays and Mondays with Marc Lawrence at PlaybookSports.com. So, Mark, good to talk college and pro football with you again.
Yeah, good to be doing it again, once again this year, Greg, as we've done before in the past. And with the football seasons now at the halfway point in college football, nearing it in the NFL, it's a perfect time to do just that as these teams are beginning to take on a lot of form.
All right, well, let's get to it. And I didn't really, there's always going to be that 1 week, 2 weeks out of the year where you look at the games and you go, well, first of all, it's a combination. I was looking at the games this week in college football and I was going, I don't know. There's not a lot of games that I really am thrilled about as a viewer. I think there's a couple of good games, there always are, but I don't think this is a great weekend of slate of games. And then to throw on the fact that it just didn't seem like there were a ton of games that I felt good at handicapping either. Now, it doesn't mean that the percentages in handicapping the picks aren't going to be better or right or whatever. It's just that, you get those weeks that the schedule just comes out a certain way and you're just not totally excited about it.
I think the easiest way to determine that, Greg, is just look at the schedule and see how many top 25 teams are playing one another. And when you have a lack of those games, you also then have what appears to be a weak card. And so it's difficult to make this card a good card because we don't see that this week in college football. But like you say, it doesn't mean that there aren't some good games out there.
Well, let's get started with our first game. And normally we start with the SEC, and that's what we're going to start with. And that is right off the bat. And I only have 2 upsets this week. And that's and again, it's not because I don't. Couple of things. First of all, and I want to say this, and we talked about this in the beginning of the season. One of the reasons I usually do really well in college football is because there's so many more upsets, there's so many more games, and I also feel it's a little bit more, believe it or not, consistent than the NFL. And there's other reasons, but upsets and picking good upsets can really make you money in college football. This has been a really tough year, for whatever the case, for upsets, as far as I'm concerned. I've had a really bad year with upsets so far, and it's because I'm not picking Louisiana Monroe, to beat Troy, and then 2 weeks later beat Liberty, and then Bowling Green beats Minnesota. It's like those 17 to 20 point underdogs aren't coming through as much, but the 30 point underdogs, it's just crazy. I couldn't believe Louisiana Monroe beat Liberty last week. It's just, so you're always going to get the upsets, but this has been a tough year for me to pick upsets.
Well, if you're looking for games like those, 30-point underdog Louisiana Monroe to win games, and you're going out on a limb and making those calls, all I can tell you is get a straitjacket ready. They're not going to happen. We can talk about them, but they're flat out not going to happen.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, Louisiana, look, you got to hand it to Terry Bowden. I think, what have they won, 2 games this year or something like that? So they get blown out every other week, and then they win like these games out of nowhere. I don't know how. I don't know how he does it, but good for them. But we'll start off with LSU. And this, to me, again, I like this as a good solid upset, and as a single-digit upset because they're still getting around 9, but it's almost a 3-1 on the money line, and that's because, last week when we talked about Mississippi, Tennessee, we kind of felt, well, Mississippi was coming off that really tough, hard-fought win against Arkansas, so maybe they were going to be a little bit tired, and here's Tennessee, everything was going well for them, but Tennessee gets off to such a bad start last week that by the time they got going, it was just too late, and then the quarterback gets hurt, and so anyway, Mississippi, you could tell at the end of that game, even Kiffin's even talking about it. I mean, Corral is just spent. I mean, this team, I can't imagine they have much left in the tank. If there was ever a college football team that needed a week off, it's Mississippi. So LSU, this is a perfect week for LSU to take advantage of a banged up Matt Corral, a tired, spent Ole Miss team. And the fact that, again, it's not just the points. It's that, hey, go for the upset. Go for the outright upset. 3-1. Why not? LSU just came off their biggest win of the year against Florida. So we'll see if they can pull it off against Ole Miss.
Like we like to say, Greg, handicapping is largely all about situations. You can have your trends, you can have your systems, your angles, and the favorite go-to things that you do, but it all applies when situations apply, which means don't force the game, let the game come to you. So if you've got situations that apply in a game which fit your handicapping criteria, that makes you feel that much more comfortable about a game. And I'm with you. I feel comfortable about this game because of the reasons you mentioned. Last week, Mississippi was absolutely spent at the end of that football game and barely hung on for their lives, and should not have, but did, hung on for their lives. And they did it because they were playing with a thinned-out football team that was really ravaged with injuries. Now they're going to pick up and take on LSU, a football program that announced the retirement at the end of the season with Ed Orgeron. And I believe in my heart that this football team is going to play its heart out for Ed Orgeron from now to the end of the football season. He's the guy that recruited every player on that roster. Those players are there for one main reason, because of Ed Orgeron. And it's not like he got the pink slip and he bailed out and he left the program last week. He's sticking around. And because of that, you're going to get a maximum effort out of these LSU football players from this point moving forward. So if you can put a situation like that into a team like Mississippi, who you mentioned here, really hung on in that last football game, I think it's an ideal spot for LSU to rise in a football game like this. I'm with you. I think this is a money line play here as well. And if you take a look at Ole Miss, when they've had conference revenge like they do in this football game, they're just 1-7 to the spread. The last 8 games they've done just that. I am not a huge Lane Kiffin fan by any way, shape, or form. Not that I'm a big Ed Orgeron fan, but I think there's reasons LSU will be playing for Ed Orgeron starting this weekend.
And then again, I mean, I bring this up a lot, that here you have a team that is getting 9 points, that is getting nearly 3-1 on the money line, and yet the last 5 years, that team has won against the other team. So the dog in this game on Saturday getting 3-1 on the money line is on a 5-year winning streak. So I feel good about that. And Max Johnson, we've talked about him as well on the program. He's got a nice future ahead of him. It's a big blow not to have your number 1 receiver. It's a big blow not to have your best defender. But again, they showed last week there's still a lot of talent on this team. And when you're playing, like you said, with heart as well, that's a big deal. And then you're going up against an Ole Miss team, like I said. I mean, if you can't catch them this week, after the last 2 weeks and what they've been through physically, then I don't know when you can catch them. So we'll take LSU in this matchup. And you know what? If they can beat Ole Miss and pull off the upset, they will be very intriguing after their bye week when they take on Alabama for the last time with Ed Orgeron. So if they can prove, hey, we just beat Florida and Ole Miss back-to-back, now we got an extra week to prepare. It's the last time Orgeron's going up against Alabama. Maybe you got something there. But first things first, let's see if they can take care of Ole Miss. Okay, now, the next game I wanted to talk about is going to be a huge test, a barometer test for Pittsburgh against Clemson in the ACC. And we knew Pittsburgh before the line came out, you just knew Pittsburgh had to be a favorite the way things were going. But you were still a little bit surprised when it came out. It's like, yeah, okay, but they should be. But even though they're a 3-point favorite, if this is one of those things where if you just put like a line, like something over the team, as far as their name, and you just and didn't know the uniform and just watched them play and looked at all their stats, this might be a 14-point spread. But this is Clemson. This isn't supposed to be easy. They're still Clemson. Remember we talked about this last week in the Syracuse game. I'm not buying all the, we're gonna go out and show everybody off after the Boston College. Come on. I mean, they were lucky to beat Syracuse last week. Pittsburgh, I have not seen Pitt play this well in a long time. I mean, and we have talked about Kenny Pickett all year. He could have been like a mid-round pick if he came out last year. he's now looking like he's got the opportunity to be a first-round draft pick in this year's draft, the way he's playing with a 21-to-1 ratio. He's got a sophomore receiver with 9 touchdowns. He's got a tight end with 5 touchdowns. The defense is top 30. It always is with Narduzzi. Clemson's offense is over 100th. They're like, what are they, 115th offensively? So again, as long as Pittsburgh if Pittsburgh keeps playing the way they're playing, Clemson keeps playing the way they're playing, I have no problem thinking Pittsburgh's going to come out on top in this one, which is why it's one of my 5-star picks of the week.
Okay, I'm going to be on the other side of this football game for a lot of the reasons and things that it is that I do. Number one, this is the first time in 64 games Clemson will be dressing up as an underdog.
2016.
64 regular season games in a row. Okay, so what has Clemson done this year to deserve that moniker, to be able to be taking points? Tell me, they're 4-2 this football season. Their only 2 losses are by 1 score each against Georgia and NC State. This football team is still in the running in the ACC. It's not like they're laying down and they rolled over and died. Also, you take a look at what they've done here within this series here. They've met Pittsburgh 3 times since Pitt joined the ACC. They were 20-point favorites in every football game, Clemson was, and they blew them out in all 3 of those football games. It's not like they're going to be intimidated by the Pitt Panthers uniforms this particular week. When this line came out, I felt like calling 911 and calling in a case of domestic violence abuse for the odds maker for making Clemson the underdog in this football game. It's ridiculous. I mean, I understand what your numbers are. The numbers are there for Pitt. They put up great numbers this football season. But Clemson hasn't done all that much wrong this season. What they haven't done is they haven't lived up to expectations. But it's still Pittsburgh taking on a 4-2 football team that's coming in here with 2 close call losses to 2 ranked football programs here. Put me down for Clemson, and I'll make that 911 call when we're done with the show.
Yeah, I think I think what it is simply is, like I was saying, is I think this line and my feeling about the game has nothing to do with history. Just
Correct.
This season. Even though I know what you're saying about this season, Clemson's won games and they've beaten good teams and they've lost to Georgia in a competitive game, and I completely get that. But if I didn't think Pittsburgh was playing at the level of they're playing right now with the quarterback and everything that they're it's like if Pitt at this point can't beat Clemson on Saturday, the way it's going, the way Clemson is kind of, statistically, especially offensively, gone, and the way Pittsburgh's gone, and with Pickett not going to be graduating after this year, forget it. And you ain't ever going to beat Clemson if you can't beat them this week. So,
one other closing thought on this football game is this, Greg. You've got 5 teams this week that entered into the AP Top 25 for the first time this season. 3 of them are playing this week. Of those 3 football teams, I'd be very, very surprised if you don't cash 2 out of 3 by fading those teams, because these teams enter these AP polls at this time of the year for the first time. They tend to suffer from a champagne high. They read the headlines, they feel too good about themselves, and what happens next week, we look for the poll rankings, and they're nowhere to be found. They're MIA because they were full of themselves in football games like this. Pitt is one of those teams, ranked for the first time, I believe, in 6 years. It's been a long time for Pittsburgh to be here. So feeling awfully good about themselves to the point where we're going to lay some points into Clemson. We're going to show you how good we are.
Yeah, and this is huge for the ACC, too, because if Pitt can beat Clemson, everything's wide open finally in the ACC.
Sure it is. For sure.
And anything can happen. But if Clemson wins this game, yeah, to me, this is the best team in the ACC other than Clemson right now. I mean, if Pitt, this is it. If Pitt can't show that, yeah, we can now compete with you guys, I mean, come on. I mean, you might as well just give Clemson the ACC championship again. By the way, Pitt 4-1 against the spread this year. Clemson 0-5 against the spread this year.
Let me remind you one other team that was 0-5 against the spread in a game they went into that everybody wanted to jump off their bandwagon was Oklahoma. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Who woke up in that football game. So we'll see if there's a wake-up call for Clemson in this game or not. We're going to find that out.
Okay, next up, let's stay in the ACC. Well, yeah, let's actually, for hoops, we'll stay in the ACC. But we'll talk a little bit Notre Dame and USC. And this is a big rivalry, long time rivalry, and a lot of historical trends to discuss here. A couple of things that I liked here, which is the reason why I have Notre Dame as a 3-star pick this week, and that is uh, if you take a look at USC, it's the first time they're a dog on the season. They're 0-11 as a road dog of 8 or less. That's not good. Throw in the fact that they are playing. If you take a look at it, and I know that they've actually played better on the road this year, but if you look at their schedule, forget home and road. They beat San Jose State, Washington State, and Colorado. They lost to Stanford by 14, Oregon State by 18, and Utah by 16, all at home. That just doesn't happen to USC. This is just not a good USC team. A lot has to do with the coaching staff, obviously. Kelly is the much better coach on the sideline in this matchup. Notre Dame has played pretty well in this series lately as well. And that's why I'm going to jump on Notre Dame just to continue, this slide that USC has been dealing with until USC proves that they can be competitive against a good football team.
Well, one of the reasons Southern Cal's the dog here is because of their poor play, as you outlined here, and that was under Clay Helton. And because of it, Clay Helton is going to be watching this game on television like we are, no longer there with Southern Cal.
Counting his money.
Counting his money and counting it well into the future, okay? Yeah. But if you look at their character and style of play this year, Southern Cal's alternated wins and losses. They win a game, they lose a game. They win a game. Well, they're coming in here off a loss. Okay, so if that pattern continues, that could be fortuitous for Southern Cal in a football game like this. I like them much better on the road than I do at home because of the situation being what it is.
Yeah, you'd have to, right?
Yeah,
especially the pressure. You don't have to deal with the home pressure. Yeah.
Exactly. So that pressure now shifts to Notre Dame in a football game like this. And this is not a vintage Notre Dame football team by any means this year as well. Their defense has really eroded, this Notre Dame football team has. And you take a look at Brian Kelly, who does own the coaching edge here, obviously, against an interim head coach in this football contest. But if you take a look at what Kelly's done, when he comes in off an underdog win, he's only cashed 4 out of 11 times to the spread in his career doing just that. Now he's got to lay points into a bitter rival in a game like Southern Cal here. I think this game means much, much more to Southern Cal than it does to save face than it does Notre Dame here. There's too much hang time in this game. You're talking about a 7-point underdog here. I'm going to grab the points with the Trojans.
All right, and we talked about, you want to just know a few other reasons why USC is not the USC of old, and we talked about their running game, 93rd nationally. That's got to stop. The new coach, they have to run the football. And the defense, I mean, they're just too talented on defense to be 71st in the nation, especially when they are 102 nationally in sacks. They got 10 sacks on the season. This is USC. That just can't happen. Okay, now let's talk about my other 5-star pick. We'll stay in the Pac-12, and that's going to be Washington State against BYU. This line shot up to BYU being favored by, I think it went up about, 4 points, I think, after Rolovich was let go. And now it's, again, close to 5. I understand the reasoning behind that. Okay, I completely get that. Your head coach is gone. Okay, he's the head coach for a reason. He's better than whoever's left over. I get that. But especially not for the first game, though. And if any team knows it, it's Washington State, because they played USC after Clay Helton the first week when Clay Helton was fired, and USC won that game, and they were all fired up, and it's the best win to date for USC on the season. Washington State has been peaking. They're playing really good football right now. They've won 3 straight. They've covered 4 straight, all as dogs, by the way, and they're dog again here. They've won the stats in the last 3 to prove that they're not just fluke, winning. They've got the better quarterback in the game as well. And BYU, now that they've stepped up in competition a little bit lately, and not as good as they were earlier in the season. I think maybe teams are starting to, a little bit more film on what they could see about BYU. Good team, BYU. Don't get me wrong. Good team. And I see this as an even matchup. But I just think that in this one-game situation, as hot as Washington State is right now, emotionally, I could see the players are going to be behind going out there and winning this football game. And I love the fact I can get 5 points in this game now.
Well, if you look at the way they were playing football before Rolovich got canned in this football contest here, they were playing as good as any team in the Pac-12. Washington State was, okay? They had won and covered their previous 3 football games in a row, and he had this football team responding, playing good football. And they were going to be a team that no one wanted to play moving forward, but that wasn't the case because of the vaccination situation. He's gone, and so too are 3 other assistant coaches. So that leaves the cupboard bare as far as the coaching situation side of the game goes. But on the other side, you've got Kalani Sitake, who is not a Mensa genius by any means when it comes to coaching college football games. He gets outcoached on almost every football game he does. He's next to Ed Ogeron, I think the second biggest cheerleading head coach in college football right now. What he does is he also doesn't play well in games when he comes off a straight-up and point spread loss. He's been there 19 times. He's only won 7 of those football contests. I think this is, like you say, a win-one for the Gipper type situation for this Washington State football team who was feeling really good about themselves before the you-know-what hit the fan in this football contest here. I'm with you. I think Washington State takes BYU down in the game.
And it's one thing to beat other Pac-12 teams like BYU did earlier in the season, especially when it's early in the season. Look, Utah was not the Utah they are now. They just weren't. They have a much better quarterback. They just weren't playing well early in the season. Arizona State they caught. Look, again, BYU, good team. But now they're on the road against a Pac-12 team who's a favorite. They're almost a touchdown favorite against a Pac-12 team that's won 3 straight games. Okay. So, speaking of the Pac-12, there are two crazy upsets I'm taking this week, one in the NFL and one in college. And again, if Louisiana Monroe can beat Liberty, then anything can happen. So I'm taking Arizona to break their 18-game losing streak against Washington. And it's probably not going to happen, but I'm getting 6-1 on the money line. And I'm always looking for reasons of why you can pull off upsets. And even though Arizona laid a clunker last week, Colorado had a couple like big plays in the game. Otherwise, it's like really just a 2-score game. It wasn't like Colorado blew Arizona at the door. And Arizona coming into that game they were doing pretty well as far as in the stats and things of that nature. They weren't getting bullied around. And I think what that is they're very well coached. I think they found the right guy in Jed Fish. When you see him coaching this team and talking about the team, I think he handles himself well. And I think that Arizona is going to be a dangerous team tonight against a Washington team with Jimmy Lake that just hasn't been very good. They're 2-7 against the spread under Lake. They're 2-9 against the spread Washington in the last 11 versus losing teams. I know it's a big thing going from covering an 18-point spread to winning the game outright, but it's a Friday night, it's a home game, and maybe Arizona can finally pull off the upset and get off the schneid.
Well, it's like you say, it's a Friday night. Anything can happen under those Friday night lights. It has not been a good season for Jimmy Lake's football team this year. They've really, really lost their stature in the world of college football. They were a Power 5 power team. Now they're a Power 5 mid-rung football team. Now they're going out there laying healthy points on the road in a conference game. I think it's the pressure all on Washington in the game. And I'm with you. I think Jed Fish was a great hire for this football program here. They needed to do something to turn this program around because they had really hit rock bottom here with Kevin Sumlin and the way that thing dissolved as it was. In the desert, when you're looking at either of these Arizona or Arizona State teams at night in the desert, you usually get a maximum effort from these guys. You're going to see it in a football game featured on a Friday night game here. I like them plus the points. I don't know if I'm going to go off the limb and take them to pull the upset on that money line like you are, but I like them to cash this ticket.
Okay, and then the final 2 games. Last week, I was able to cash in with one of my 5 stars being Colorado State. And that turned out to be just as easy as we thought it could have been against New Mexico. New Mexico didn't even have 100 yards of total offense in that game, so that was a piece of cake game. So it's not going to be a 5-star, but I'm coming right back as one of my top picks this week for Colorado State. They're a 3-point favorite against Utah State. I think it's like 3.5. And look, both teams are going in opposite directions. Just that simple. And I said last week, the reason I really like Colorado State right now is because everything is just attitude-wise going perfectly. Sort of like why I like Pitt this week. when everything is just going well and your confidence is sky high and it's not used to being there, and you're just feeling good about yourself, and every aspect of the game is just working in sync perfectly. I think this says a lot about the direction the program is going under Adazio. And look, I think Utah State's going to be fine with Blake Anderson, but Utah State is just not a better team than Colorado State right now. The Aggies have dropped 3 straight against the spread. They're also, and this is a bigger one, 2-12 against the spread in their last 14 as a home dog, including 0-2 this year. That's a big one. Colorado State has won 3 out of 4. They've covered 4 straight. The only loss was that 10-point loss at Iowa. That was the game that I started to go, well, let me take a look at this Colorado State game, only losing by 10 at Iowa. This is a huge game for Colorado State as far as the conference is concerned. They host Boise State next week. So, look, if Colorado State, if both teams just keep playing the way they've been playing the last few weeks, Colorado State's going to win this football game.
This is another one of these what I call say it ain't so, Joe games. And much like Clemson, who dress up as a rare underdog, much like Oregon's dressing up as a rare underdog in this football game against UCLA, so too is Utah State to Colorado State. The last 2 times these 2 teams have played, Utah State was a 23 and a 29-point favorite in the football game. Now they're the home dog in the football game. And it's not because Colorado State's on this major, massive run where they look nearly unbeatable this football season. It's because Utah State just has not delivered the goods as expected under Blake Anderson. And I'm a big Blake Anderson fan.
Yes.
And because of that, I'm going to take the points with Utah State in the contest and make Colorado State prove to me that they're worthy of laying points in a series where they've been the huge, big double-digit underdog in the past.
Okay, and then the other game is one of my top picks is going to be in the Mountain West as well, Nevada and Fresno. And Fresno is the 3-point home favorite in this one. To me, I think this is just a matter of, and you just talked about it with Clemson and even kind of to the extent Utah State a little bit, which is that if in the beginning of the season, if you were predicting this game, well, Nevada is definitely the better team, and Nevada should be even favored in this game. So what has Nevada done wrong? Nothing to be an underdog in this game. Look, Fresno State's they've had some good moments. I like the quarterback matchup. Haener against Strong, very underrated matchup that nobody really pays too much attention to because it's the Mountain West and it's a West Coast time zone game. But that should be interesting. I just like also the fact that Nevada has been on the road this year twice as a road dog to Cal and Boise State. They won both games outright, and they also have a few other trends working their way in this spot, which is why I'm jumping all over the Nevada, just because, again, not just the trends, but I just think they're a better team.
This is a really, really good matchup here. These are 2 of the best teams in the Mountain West Conference here. If San Diego State weren't undefeated, we'd be talking about this being the premier game matchup on the Mountain West card. And you can make cases for both sides because they're both 5-win football teams, and they both bring a lot to the table in the contest. As you say, at the beginning of the football season, Nevada figured to be the favorite in this game here, and all they've done is win 5 games, and why are they not the favorite in the contest here? Great quarterback play out of Carson Strong from this team here. He's going to probably be a National Football League player. So too is Jake Haener from Fresno State. We might see him in the NFL as well. So we got 2 terrific quarterbacks in this matchup here. And I think you can pick and choose till the cows come home about what side's the right side in this football game. But until Nevada falls as an underdog, and they've been a really, really strong play like that, I'm going to take them plus the points. Fresno's a good football team. Nevada's a better football team.
Yeah, and one of those trends I wanted to mention, head coach Jay Norwell, 12-6 against the spread as a Mountain West Conference dog, including 7-0 straight up and against the spread as a dog of 6 or less. Really works out well for Nevada in this one. By the way, that San Diego State Air Force game, again, should be a great game. I had to stay away from that game completely because San Diego State's dominated the series. It's the number 1 rushing defense in college football against the number 1 rushing offense in college football. I kind of like Air Force. I think they're a better team this year than San Diego State, but it's a really good matchup. And I just stayed away from it because I kind of liked Air Force, but San Diego State's dominated the series, so I just decided to stay away from it.
So my question to you here, Greg, is when you have matchups like this where a real strength into a real strength, and they collide and they butt heads, What does Air Force do for plan B if San Diego State shuts their rushing offense down? There is not a plan B for Air Force. They don't throw the football.
No, which is
No.
actually why I always say when those two defense versus offense collide, I usually take the defense.
There you go.
Yeah. Which is why I'm staying away from the game. All right, now let's talk NFL. And let's get into the first game on the schedule. There's some really good games in the NFL this week. And a couple of big dogs actually highlight my week. And we're going to start with the Tennessee-Kansas City matchup. And in this one, you have Tennessee coming off a huge win on Monday night against Buffalo. Huge win. And Sunday night. Yeah, Monday night against Buffalo. And it was clearly their best win of the season. And now you're taking on this Kansas City team that, okay, they've won 2 out of 3, but they are just not playing anywhere near that Kansas City level that we've seen over the last few years. Here's it, for instance, I was, when I watch my Game Pass games now every week, I have so many, I have all, I got whatever. I mean, almost every game I watch now is on Game Pass, so it's a lot of games. And I've got the games, and I got to watch them in a short period of time. And I have my other monitor, and I'm working on my monitor, and I had the Washington-Kansas City game on. And sometimes I'm not even completely paying attention to even the score. I'm just, okay, I know what the plays are doing. I know. So I'm sitting, and all of a sudden I'll go, yeah, by the way, what's the score in this game? And I looked, and I saw that Washington was up by 3 points. I could have sworn they were up by 14. That's how I thought the game was going, because Kansas City was turning the ball over left and right. It just looked like Washington was dominating the game to a certain extent. But once I saw that, then Kansas City took over the game. Washington basically did not take advantage because they weren't good enough. They didn't take advantage of all these mistakes Kansas City was making. Just because Kansas City beat Philadelphia and Washington, I'm not going to go, oh, they're back. The Chiefs are back. Jump on the Chiefs. I can't believe that when the line opened that they were a 6-point. I was like, who's hurt? Is Derrick Henry out? Is Ryan Tannehill out? How was Kansas City opened up as a 6-point favorite at Tennessee after what Tennessee did on Monday night? I don't get it. I'm jumping all over Tennessee in this spot.
Name and reputation, okay, is what it's all about. Kansas City finally got off the schneid and won and covered a football game. Everybody wants to jump back on that Kansas City bandwagon. They're laying the same amount of points here that Buffalo laid last week, and I can assure you Kansas City's not as good of a football team as the Buffalo Bills right now, at least anyway, okay? Tennessee's confidence was really built after that win they had last week. It was a really strong showing, and I'd say they've got plenty of reason to come and play in this game, given the fact that the last time these two teams met was in the 2019 AFC Championship game when Kansas City beat Tennessee and denied them that trip to the Super Bowl. I'm all over Tennessee in this football game here. I know that it's difficult. When you pull an upset like Tennessee did and you're back home as an underdog the very next week, you're usually taking a shorter amount of points because of what you accomplish. You're not doing that in this football game. You're trying to take down a Kansas City team that has, 1, leads the league in turnovers, 2, has a rotten defense, can't stop the run, and you're talking also about a Kansas City football team that is a Super Bowl loser. And they're finding out what Super Bowl loser jinxes are all about this football season. This is the worst role of all Super Bowl loser teams when they're road favorites in non-division football games. I think the wrong team's favorites are, like with you, Tennessee plus the points in the game.
And also, but by the way, Kansas City was a 6-point favorite last week at Washington. And they open up as nearly a 6-point favorite this week at Tennessee?
That's the comparison. That's exactly. Look at Buffalo line here last week and look at that line to Kansas City last week.
Crazy.
Something's not right in the state of Denmark. Something smells in the state of Denmark here.
Yeah, that's why I was looking for who's hurt, who's out. Yep. Look, I understand Monday night, tough game, short week. I get all that, but that's just, it's not a be-all, end-all. Tennessee, meanwhile, 2-0, straight up and against the spread this year as a 6-point dog. All right, so they've been in this spot twice this year, and they've won both games. And they're 8-3 against the spread in their last 11 as a home dog, with 7 wins in those 11, including the same 2019 season when they lost the championship game, they were a 5-point home dog to Kansas City, and they beat Kansas City. So Tennessee they've won 4-5, and I just think right now, when you beat the hottest team in the NFL, you deserve people to feel pretty good about what you did, and I do, and I think you do as well. Pretty impressive. Okay, next up, a really good game that, look, even though it's my top pick of the week, it's more of Cincinnati against Baltimore, not Baltimore. I said to myself a few weeks ago, after Baltimore won another crazy game against the Colts, that I was going to stay away from these Baltimore games because they are just finding all sorts of weird ways to win games this year. And I just can't. I mean, they should not have beaten the Colts. They should not have beaten Detroit. They should not have beaten Kansas City. I mean, but Lamar Jackson is so good and they're so well coached that they just find ways to pull out these wins. And that's a good thing. But it also shows you that they are vulnerable. And maybe I'm one of the minority, but I am already buying into the Cincinnati football team. I think they're for real. And this is the huge benchmark game that will decide that. And I think they're going to play well. Look, the Charger game last week, forget that. The Chargers, look, if the Chargers would have played anybody in the NFL last week, I think they would have lost. They wouldn't have lost a blowout fashion, but they would have lost. They did not show up last week against Baltimore. Anybody who watched that game could see that. But Cincinnati is not only playing well because they have a quarterback that is on his way to being elite, and the offense is really good, but also the defense. Very underrated defense. I am a huge Logan Wilson fan. I was when he came out of college out of Wyoming last year. He didn't get, a lot of time. He was a rookie, so, it takes time to kind of develop, but now he has broken out, and he is going to be a star linebacker for Cincinnati. DJ Reader's healthy this year. He was hurt last year. They had key injuries last year. All these guys are healthy on defense. The secondary is a lot better than people give them credit for. So I think this is a prove-it game for the Bengals. I think they're going to prove it. I think Baltimore is going to be in another one of those close games that they've been in most of the season. Maybe they will pull it out. They pulled them out left and right, but I'm getting 7. So, I feel like if I'm getting 7 and they want to be in one of these close games, even if they pull it out, I'll cover the spread.
I get where you're coming from. Cincinnati, a vastly improved football team, taking 7 points in a division game. You're going to look real long and real hard at a situation just like that. What I can't do is jump in front of this Baltimore Raven freight train right now at the moment here. They're really cooking. Lamar Jackson's putting up MVP type numbers once again this football season here. And they are in the third of a 3-game homestand. In fact, this will actually be a 4-game homestand because they've got a bye week on deck next week, and they come right back home after that. So this football team will have been camped at home for almost 6 weeks.
That's crazy.
My goodness. But one of those situations being that Baltimore, the third leg of a 3-game homestand with the bye week up next, it's a terrific situation. Those teams in the NFL are 11-1 straight up and 10-2 to the spread, doing just what Baltimore is doing this particular week. I think Joe Burrow is a terrifically talented quarterback, and getting Jamar Chase from LSU, I think, was an astute pickup, a great draft choice, and it's working out real well for this tandem here, those two players right now. And in fact, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are the only 2 quarterbacks in the league this year that have thrown for 2 or more touchdowns in each game they played thus far this football season. So a lot of good things going on with Cincinnati. I just can't step in front of this Baltimore train right now at this particular time. Put me down for Baltimore in this contest in a step-up game for Cincinnati.
All right, next up, let's talk about another key game for 2 teams, Indianapolis and San Francisco, on Sunday Night Football, because both teams need this win. They've both not gotten off to good starts so far this season. But I look at this sort of like when you take a look at the schedule for Indianapolis, and everybody knew when Wentz got banged up and you looked at the schedule, Colts are going to get off to a slow start. It's just not going to go well. There's too tough a schedule. Wentz is banged up. Even though he knows Reich, it's still going to be. It's going to take time. It's just going to happen. If they just would have, if their kicker was just not hurt or did not choke, they beat Baltimore and they're okay. They're okay. They're 500. We're okay. But that game really put them behind the 8 ball, and now they've got to win this game. Now they've got to win. Now they have to get this game back that they lost a couple of weeks ago, and I think they can do it. Because if you look at it, they've won 2 out of 3. They've covered 3 straight. They almost beat Baltimore, one of those hot teams we talked about. And San Francisco, this is just I go against San Francisco every time they're in the spot, and I'm cashing in every time. Okay, let's do this. Let's take out San Francisco's Super Bowl season in 2019. This is the best season Kyle Shanahan has coached. This is their Super Bowl season. They didn't win, but this is our Super Bowl season. Under Kyle Shanahan, if you take out the 2019 Super Bowl season, as a home favorite, they're 0-11 against the spread. If you also look at it a little bit further, the team, 0-14 against the spread. The last 14 is a home favorite versus losing teams. 0-14. And that includes this year when they lost to Seattle. They're 0-3 straight up and against the spread in their last 3. So, yes, I'm thankful I've got 4 in case they win by 3. Especially the way the Colts, could probably lose another close game. That's been their season. So I'm jumping all over the Colts in this spot.
I get and I dig all the San Francisco ugliness that's happened in the past, especially in roles like this where they're home favorites in football contests. They have not responded well. What I'm seeing here from a different pair of glasses is a San Francisco football team that is getting Jimmy Garoppolo back, their starting quarterback, who's been out for the last game and a half. Rested, on top of it, having a week of rest to get ready for this football game. And you've got a San Francisco football team that's really hurting right now. They're coming in here right now off of 3 losses in a row. 5 times Kyle Shanahan's been in that role. He's won the money all 5 times in those football games, not to lose a 4th consecutive football game. I look at the Colts here and I see a football team that, while they've been competitive and largely against good football teams, their only 2 wins this year, and you can't dismiss the fact that their only 2 wins this year have been against Sisters of the Poor. You look at their victories this football season here.
Miami and Houston.
I can't see, they're 2-10 combined. I don't see a quality win or a quality effort by the Colts thus far this football season here. That being the case, I'm going to stay at home with San Francisco, take advantage of the rest and the new quarterback coming back for this football team, and make Indianapolis step up and prove that they can play up quality football against a good football team.
Who would you start right now at quarterback after what you've seen? Because I watching that Arizona game, and if he had help from his receivers and the team, they had terrible penalties on offensive line. Guys were dropping passes. I think they beat Arizona in that football game. And I thought Trey Lance showed that in most, 90% of the other situations in the NFL, when you draft a quarterback in the first round, you're not going to have that guy in front of you. He's starting. He's another one of these rookie starters. I just think he proved to me that he should be out there. I just do. And maybe they just need to lose another game or 2. All right, we're out of it. Let's start Lance. But Lance is their future. I liked what I saw out of him against Arizona. I would have just rode with Trey Lance. I know he's banged up, so maybe that's a good reason to go back to Jimmy. But I don't think it's going to be too much longer before they go back to Trey.
Well, all Garoppolo has to do is not win football games, and that decision will be made right there by Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Trey Lance couldn't play in this game if he wanted to because he's injured and he's banged up. So, it's a moot point for this particular game, but your question was, who would I go to in the future? I would go to the guy that I invested all those trade moves to draft him number 3 in the National Football League, and I think it's Trey Lance time for the San Francisco 49ers just about right now.
And by the way, that's something I'd be a little bit alarmed too, is you don't want your young quarterback that you need to run the football get hurt early in his career. That's not a good sign.
Right.
Last one is Seattle on Monday night against the Saints. Saints favored by 5. You talked about USC as alternating wins and losses. Well, that's what the Saints are doing. But if they do the alternating, just like USC, this would be a loss. They've won, they've lost, they've won, they lost, they've won. Meanwhile, Seattle, I thought that, look, they got off to a slow start last week with Geno under center for the first time in a long time. They came back really strong in the second half. Look, TJ Watt, so I've said this before. I think TJ Watt, to me, is almost like when he comes out of games, and he's not playing on a given week, I think he's worth 3 points. I really do. Quarterbacks are worth a touchdown. I think he's worth at least half that. That's how important he is to Pittsburgh's defense. Anyway, the home team on Monday Night Football this year has won all 6 games. They've also covered 5 out of 6. Pete Carroll is 13-2 against the spread off back-to-back straight-up losses. Obviously, a lot has to do with Russell Wilson. But Seattle, if they can just win this football game, will face Jacksonville next, go into a bye. I bet you Russell Wilson comes back earlier than expected. They're 4-4. Now they've got a shot the rest of the season. So this is the season for the Seattle Seahawks. They know how important this game is.
I agree with you. I think all Geno Smith needs to do is hold the fort until Russell Wilson gets back here, and that means play 500 football. They're out that tough loss against Pittsburgh when Geno fumbled the ball away, but all he needs to do, like I say, is hold the fort here until that happens. You got Pete Carroll in a role he's really, really shined in, and that's at home when his team does not have a winning record. He's 33-13 in football games like that. And you've got New Orleans. They've been out-yarded each of their last 4 football games in a row. That's a leaking oil favorite laying points on the road in the National Football League in a Monday night game, no less. I like Seattle in this football game. I think they take the Saints down and win this football game straight up on the scoreboard.
All right, Mark, what's going on at PlaybookSports.com? Because the Major League Baseball season is nearly over, but the NBA season has begun, and the college basketball season is just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah, we'll be publishing our basketball newsletters here in January once we put football in the rearview mirror and college basketball enters into conference play. But for now, we're focusing in on what's going on in football. We've got a big weekend on tap for our weekend of winners here. It includes our NFL featured Revenge Play of the Month. It's all available online, playbooksports.com. $79 the weekend. Call in and mention the word Prime. You can pick it up for $69. Save yourself $10 doing just that. Or just log on to playbooksports.com and download this week's newsletter just in time for the football games.
Thanks, Mark. See you next time.
Have a good weekend, Greg. Take care. Be well. Stay safe.